trapping is one of the most powerful mechanics in competitive Pokemon singles, and demons like Wobbuffet, Gothitelle, and Dugtrio are infamous as a result. Switching is an incredibly important part of counterplay in Pokemon, and removing that option to switch out and trapping you with something just creates so many game-breaking scenarios. Gothitelle is able to completely PP stall enemies, sit there resting up infinitely. Wobbuffet has similar capabilities in multiple games, and Dugtrio has caused many problems of its own. But there is one trapper who has never been the subject of as much controversy, and is legal to use in every generation. A lot of players would even call this trapper a healthy Pokemon that adds completely reasonable counterplay to certain important Pokemon. I'm speaking of course about Magneton, and by extension his father, Magnezone. Magneton is different to other trappers because unlike the ability Shadow Tag, which just traps any Pokemon at all, or Arena Trap, which traps most Pokemon, Magnet Pull, the ability of Magneton, is a little bit more limited, or significantly more limited. Magnet Pull is only able to trap Steel-type Pokemon, and that restriction is what makes it balanced. The things you can trap with Magneton are very specific, and having this option is actually balanced in a lot of players' eyes because of the dominance of Steel types in competitive. These are defensive titans, and having something that is able to trap and eliminate them is actually pretty good. And in a lot of cases, these Steel types have tools to answer Magneton or Magnezone anyway themselves, so it doesn't feel like an unfair fight. Why don't we take a look at the competitive history of Magneton and Magnezone? Trappers that are not only balanced, but in fact lead to healthier metagames, and perhaps a blueprint for how trapping mechanics should be designed in future. The magnetism begins in Gen 3, when Magneton first received the ability Magnet Pull, an ability that simply prevents Steel-type Pokemon from choosing to switch out. One of the most thematically appropriate ability designs ever, I think. And the ability to trap Steel types was immediately excellent in this metagame. Magneton has the tools to eliminate many Steel types with its high special attack and Stab Thunderbolt. And its greatest target is Skarmory. Skarmory is one of the kings of the metagame, a Steel Flying type, which is an elite defensive typing and allows it to be an impeccable physical wall and an engine for progress with its spikes it can set. Magneton being able to target and eliminate this ubiquitous and extraordinarily common Pokemon is extremely useful, and it is the #1 target for Magneton, and often what Magneton teams are built around eliminating. Magneton pairs very well with Pokemon who hate Skarmory, such as Snorlax, Metagross, and Salamence. Skarmory would otherwise easily wall these, but with Magneton by your side, you can rest easy. Beyond the job of just trapping Skarmory, Magneton is a useful Pokemon beyond that too, as there's more Steel types in the game than just Skarmory. Thoritrus is another big target, an alternative spiker with a bug Steel typing, and more options than Skarmory like Spin and Explosion. Magneton commonly carries Hidden Power Fire just to eliminate Thoritrus at his times 4 super effective against it. Another Steel type that you might want to target with Magneton is Metagross. Metagross is a little bit tough though, because Metagross is equipped with the move Earthquake, and you aren't quite able to threaten a one-hit KO against Metagross. This is where things get tricky, and you're not exactly a 100% foolproof trapper against this particular Steel type. For this reason, you may need some support. One thing Magneton can do is run Substitute and be paired with Celebi. If Celebi Leech Seeds Metagross and then Magneton hits the field, you have trapped them, and with Leech Seed up you can substitute repeatedly until they are in range of Thunderbolt and then earn the KO that way, leaving yourself completely out of harm's way from those Earthquakes because of the substitutes you're creating. Another way to trap Metagross is if they lock into Meteor Mash with their Choice Band. Choice Band is of course an item that does not allow you to switch your attacks, providing you with the benefit of bonus attack in exchange. Magneton can switch in very nicely against a Metagross Meteor Mash. It has a ×4 resistance to Steel, and from there it can survive the incoming hits and eliminate the Metagross in front. Another tough one is Jirachi, because Jirachi is also a steel type equipped with plenty of tools to handle Magneton. Jirachi commonly uses the move Fire Punch, which is super effective and is a special attack in Gen 3. Jirachi can run Body Slam with a high 60% chance to paralyze, because of its ability Serene Grace, doubling that proc chance. Substitute can also get you out of the way of a Magneton Thunder Wave, and Calm Minding can also boost you to the point where Magneton is no longer threatening. The best thing Magneton can do to a Jirachi is probably Thunder Wave it, because that severely restricts its mobility. It's going to be inactive often and have significantly hindered speed. Hoping to KO Jirachi with Thunderbolt is often a fool's errand. Jirachi is commonly invested in a lot of bulk and can stall you out with Wish Protect, healing it repeatedly, and Jirachi will probably get the better of that 1v1 with its own attacks like Body Slam and Fire Punch, or even Calm Mind, Psychic, etc. So from all this, I'm sure you can see why Magneton is considered pretty balanced. Not only does it actually trap a pretty limited amount of Pokemon, but most of these Pokemon have tools to counteract Magneton and they don't get completely devastated by it. You need to meet certain conditions to be able to actually eliminate these steel types, especially ones like Metagross and Jirachi. Even Forretress can potentially survive Hidden Power Fire and strike back with an Earthquake. Forretress learns Earthquake as well, which will one-hit Magneton. You can even Earthquake preemptively to predict a Magneton incoming and leave yourself completely safe. There is a bit of a gimmicky set that Skarmory can run with the move Hidden Power Ground, which is designed to counteract a Magneton trap. It's a bit of a comedy set. If Skarmory invests fully in speed, it can outrun most Magneton sets, and then Hidden Power Ground can strike them with a ×4 super effective hit if you have an adamant nature. This is devastating for Magneton, specifically trying to come in and eliminate Skarmory, but dying instead. But this is a bit of a meme set, not only because Hidden Power Ground is a bit of a waste of a move slot in most scenarios, but also because this requires you to invest fully into attack on Skarmory, which is just not that useful. Skarmory is a primarily defensive Pokemon, and you want to maximize that with HP and some sort of defensive investment. Yes, you can get one over on Magneton, but your Skarmory is going to be a much worse Pokemon with all that effort spent getting rid of Magneton. Still, this is sometimes seen, it has its place on certain aggressive teams, but it is a bit of a meme. It also helps that Magneton is not completely useless outside of the job of trapping these specific Pokemon. It is a decent choice. It has a steel typing itself, meaning it is immune to Sandstorm and has good resistances. It can be a defensive switch-in to an Aerodactyl in a pinch. It's not the most solid thing, but you do resist Rock Slide and Double Edge and threaten them back with a super effective Thunderbolt. Magneton can get some pretty high value Toxics on certain targets like Swampert or Flygon, who are trying to come in and threaten it. Magneton sometimes chooses to run Hidden Power Grass, specifically to have an extra tool to eliminate Swampert, as they are common adversaries and see themselves faced against one another pretty frequently. And Magneton also hits hard with Thunderbolt. It can deal significant damage to enemies like Gengar and Suicune. Gengar is a good one because they commonly only use Thunderbolt and Ice Punch as coverage, which you resist both of, and strike back with pretty considerable damage. I mean, this guy has a 120 base special attack. It's worth noting that Magneton usually needs to carry the Magnet item to enhance its electric type damage. The reason it needs this on most sets is because Skarmory with special defense investment is actually able to live Thunderbolt much of the time from full health. The Magnet increases electric damage by just 10%, which is just that little bit more to enhance the odds of one-hit KOing Skarmory significantly. The roll to one-hit Skarmory is about 70% with Magnet. It's a shame because Leftovers would be very useful on this, and some players still choose to run Leftovers anyway, even though they're sacrificing that important damage range. Magneton with Leftovers has a lot more longevity and can stick around a lot longer. It can take great advantage of Protect to chip heal in the sands and just be a bit more of a nuisance to the enemy, and surprisingly get a lot of value in some scenarios. It's a little bit annoying that it needs Magnet for its most important damage range, but sometimes your game plan is to just first do a bit of damage to Skarmory to put it into Thunderbolt range and then bring Magneton in, which is not that impossible to do. Some teams do choose to do that. Overall, I think that Magneton is very healthy for the game because Skarm is ever present, and having a Trapper that is pretty good at eliminating it is very important in my opinion. I also like that this Skarm elimination enables different kinds of team styles. There is of course physical offense, which is a team style aiming to take advantage of a dead Skarm with a lot of physical threats that would have otherwise been walled by Skarmory. There is setup sweeper teams you can use because they appreciate Skarmory's roar being taken out of the picture. There are even greedier teams that can take advantage of Magneton to a great extent. It is a malleable Pokemon with surprising scent variety as well, because all you really need is Thunderbolt and Hidden Power, and then the rest is up to you. And it's going to vary team to team. It's one of the rare Pokemon in Gen 3 without a number one popular set, because it truly is team dependent what flex slots you run. Toxic and Protect are popular, but so are Thunder Wave, Rain Dance or Sunny Day for weather clearing, which can help out teammates like Suicune or Snorlax who hate sand. Screech is a good option on Magneton to get one over on last Pokemon Snorlax, or even Blissey, who can cause you problems. Metal Sound has a similar purpose. Substitute can be good paired with Celebi or other Leech Seed Pokemon. Overall, just an awesome Pokemon that I think is fun to use in Gen 3 and leads to team variety, leads to a lot of positive metagame interactions. In the next generation, Gen 4, Magneton was blessed with a fantastic new evolution. Magnezone, who's looking a bit like a UFO creature, very cool design. And it retains the same typing and ability Magnet Pull, but it has significantly better stats with higher bulk, higher special attack, 10 points higher. A little bit of a loss to speed, but overall Magnezone is a much better Pokemon. And it is appreciating all of these new tools in Gen 4, its enhanced stats, and a wider array of different steel types that it is able to target. Skarmory is of course still a part of the metagame, and an important Pokemon to trap and eliminate, but there are way more steel types here. Heatran is an important new face that is actually kind of a tough adversary for Magnezone, since it's a fire steel type and fire threatens Magnezone super effectively. But Magnezone is able to perhaps run Hidden Power Ground if it wants to target Heatran specifically, or just finish it off with a Thunderbolt and a Choice Scarf to get the speed necessary in situations where that is useful. Empoleon is another one who absolutely hates Magnezone's guts. Empoleon is weak to Electric, is a Steel type, and gets pretty decimated by Magnezone. A very important Pokemon for Magnezone to match up against is Scizor, who is newly buffed in Gen 4, is much more popular, and that Hidden Power Fire is able to devastate Scizor with ×4 super effective damage. And Jirachi is of course still around, and it's more than still around, it's become ever present, as Jirachi skyrocketed in Gen 4 to become perhaps the best Pokemon in the whole game. Jirachi's new option of Iron Head is metagame warping, a physical steel type attack with a 60% flinch chance thanks to Serene Grace. This is such a powerful effect and an incredibly high chance to prevent the enemy from playing the game. So Magnezone has an important job of being a Pokemon that can trap Jirachi and also has a ×4 steel resistance, which is more useful than ever. So Magnezone has a very important job of eliminating the demon of the metagame Jirachi a little bit. It's going to have trouble doing so sometimes because of Body Slam causing problem, Fire Punch still being a concern, but Magnezone just being able to Thunder Wave it or even finish it off and eliminate it when it's low is crucial, and Magnezone is very good at doing so. Magnezone also has more teammates to enable. As with the physical special split, there is a vaster array of physical attackers that can be used, and most notably Dragon types can be physical attackers now. In Gen 3, Dragon type attacks were always special, but now there is not only physical Dragon type attacks available, there is the new Outrage option, which is buffed in Gen 4 to have 120 power. Yes, it locks you into Outrage, and yes, you get confused at the end of it, but with Dragon being such a good type here, and Magnezone being a great teammate to eliminate the 1 Dragon resistance of Steel, Outrage becomes an incredibly spammable move, and Magnezone loves teammates like Flygon and Dragonite. Another cool new move in Gen 4 that Magnezone has access to is Magnet Rise, which gives you a bit of counterplay against those ground types which are trying to target you, and even steel types with ground coverage, more importantly, because Magnet Rise grants a temporary immunity to ground. This is massive for trapping steel types with Earthquake, which there are quite a lot of, like Metagross, who is still around here and still popular, and the new Bronzong, who has Earthquake on most of its sets. Magnet Rise allows you to actually operate much better against these Pokemon. Magnezone in Gen 4 is a pretty great Pokemon, and it feels a little bit more varied in what it can do, with more item variety here and options like Choice Scarf, Leftovers, and the Type Berries to allow you a safety net against incoming hits. Just being considerable choices that give you a little bit more flair to the Magnezone and the different ways it can be used. With the new option of Magnet Rise and even Explosion, giving you a bit more offensive capabilities outside of just trapping, Magnezone is just excellent all around in Gen 4. But funnily enough, Magnezone is not completely outclassing its little brother Magneton, who you'd think is strictly worse, but Magneton does still have a niche here in Gen 4 because Magneton happens to be a little bit faster than Magnezone. It's worse in every other way, but it's a bit faster with 70 speed instead of 60 speed. And this allows Magneton to hit some important speed benchmarks. Magneton is notably able to, with a Choice Scarf, outspeed a +1 Dragon Dance boosted Gyarados and strike back with a super effective Thunderbolt, which is actually a pretty useful thing to have in this generation where Gyarados is one of the scariest threats. It's very nice to have something that outruns it after Dragon Dance and threatens to KO it. Scarf Rotom commonly does this, and Magneton can do this while also filling the role of that Magnet Pull Trapper who can eliminate those important steel types. Magneton also happens to outrun Dragonite, another popular Dragon Dance Pokemon. It can outrun it after a Dragon Dance boost and strike back with Hidden Power Ice. So Magneton may be worse overall with inferior bulk, but that speed benchmark it hits is useful against those two Dragon Dance Pokemon, and it can still do the job of Magnet Pull trapping well enough with a plenty high special attack stat of 120. All the same great options, and it also gets Explosion now, giving it more usefulness. In the next generation, Gen 5, Magnezone maintains its OU position, and it's got a lot more to do and some more tools to do it. One of the greatest new item additions for Magnezone in Gen 5 was the Air Balloon, a great item that grants a temporary immunity to ground on the holder. The balloon will pop when you are hit with any attack, but temporarily you will have a ground immunity, which is really nice for Magnezone because, yes, it does have Magnet Rise, but it's still a little bit wary of switching into any steel type with a ground move because if they predict it coming in, they can eliminate you. But Air Balloon gives you one turn of safety against ground attacks, and then as they pop the balloon, then you Magnet Rise, and now you are able to get rid of them. So this gives Magnezone the ability to trap and eliminate those pesky steel types with ground coverage all the more consistently, and even gives it a pretty nice way to contend with Excadrill, who is a new top tier threat in Gen 5 that would otherwise be a huge problem. That Air Balloon and Magnet Rise combo is really nice there. To the surprise of nobody, Skarmory is still around, still meta relevant, and still very valuable to be able to trap. But there is actually a new big shot steel type in Gen 5 that has overtaken Skarmory in usage and metagame relevance, and that is Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is released in Gen 5, and it is a titan. It is incredibly good defensively with its Iron Barbed ability, its fantastic stats and typing, and access to both Stealth Rock and Spikes, as well as fantastic miscellaneous utility, and even some offensive prowess with great stab types and attacks. So Ferrothorn is an outstanding Pokemon, and Magnezone happens to be really amazing into it. Ferrothorn has the move Bulldoze as ground coverage, but that is not a very powerful attack, and it is actually pretty damn vulnerable to Magnezone, more so than a lot of other steel types. So Magnezone with its hidden power Fire is threatening that Ferrothorn with ×4 super effective damage, which is huge. And Magnezone has an interesting option it likes to run in Gen 5 to counteract Ferrothorn a bit more, which is Sunny Day. Ferrothorn is very commonly used on rain teams because it appreciates fire type damage being weakened. Ferrothorn is very weak to fire type damage, and rain weakens that damage, but Sunny Day will not only change the rain to sun, eliminating that, but it will enhance the damage of HP fire, allowing a guaranteed one-hit KO against Ferrothorn, which is huge. So you can disrupt the enemy's weather plan, disabling their weather completely, sometimes even ruining them if Politoad has gone down and now rain will never come back up, or perhaps they rely on something with thunder, and thunder now has 50 accuracy in the sun, which is devastating. Magnezone has a bit of value in the weather wars because this interaction lets it reset the weather and is just so convenient to not only ruin their weather plan but provide you the damage needed to one-hit Ferrothorn. Scizor is also, yet again, pretty common in Gen 5, probably more than it is in Gen 4 because its fantastic ability to match up into the popular Alakazam and Reuniclus and also Latios, so Magnezone being able to trap that is crucial, and it enables allies that hate Scizor being up and Scizor being used as a check to them. Jirachi is less of a huge problem in Gen 5 as the metagame around it has become a little bit more powerful, but it's still seen and Magnezone is appreciated in that matchup too. For the same reasons it was in Gen 4. Magnezone's relevance is just maintaining. This time there isn't as much use for the Magneton speed creep. It still does hit that benchmark against Gyarados and Dragonite, but those are less popular than they were back in Gen 4. I think I've still seen Magneton used a little bit, but that niche is a little bit less valuable this time around. In Gen 6, the world around Magnezone changed quite a bit, as Permanent Rain was removed from the franchise, a bunch of Mega Forms got added, and the type chart changed a bit. Magnezone loses its resistances to Dark and Ghost here, the Steel type was nerfed, but Magnezone is still OU, and that is largely because of the continued ever-presence of Ferrothorn and the importance of eliminating it. And without Rain to support it, as well as it could be supported in Gen 5, Magnezone is a little bit better at getting rid of the guy. It also helps that Magnezone feels like a pretty solid bulky attacker beyond the role of just trapping, even more than Magneton did back in Gen 3. And Magnezone carries Volt Switch, which is just a great pivoting option, and a choice specs Magnezone Volt Switch hits like a truck while pivoting you out, so that's a great utility attack. Flash Cannon is much more useful coverage now because it can hit fairy types, new fairy types, and Magnezone also has fairy resistance, so it is able to help against enemies like Clefable, who are now incredibly common. Magnezone's defensive and offensive profiles feel in a bit better here, and there's some more stuff to trap too, like Mega Scizor, who I suppose is just Scizor 2. You're kind of just trapping Scizor again as you used to, but Mega Scizor is one of the more popular Megas and often used as a win condition, so having something to just get rid of their win condition is pretty huge. Some of the new Steel-type meta threats are giving you a bit of problems, like Mega Metagross, the big popular new Mega evolution in the game. Once it gets its turn to Mega Evolve, it's extremely fast and has Earthquake, which just devastates. I don't think that the Balloon set is as common in this generation, and you prefer choice items, which were popular before but are a bit more preferred here. So the Air Balloon could be used, but it's not even that fantastic at saving your skin against a Mega Metagross, who can withstand your hits pretty well and just attack through you. With a Choice Scarf, you can at least finish off a low Mega Metagross, and that could be useful, but Mega Metagross is matching up pretty well against Magnezone. There's also Bisharp, who probably deals a little bit too much to Magnezone with its knockoff option, the newly buffed knockoff, which now deals big neutral damage and removes your item. Trapping it can still be useful, but these popular new Steel types certainly have the tools to take on Magnezone. But luckily for Magnezone, there are some pretty fantastic teammates that appreciate your support. Mega Pinsir is one. Mega Pinsir absolutely hates Steel types with its game plan of the primarily spamming flying type stab with its A-Relate. So Magnezone pairs very well with Mega Pinsir. And you still pair well with many dragons, not only because you let them click Outrage a bit more with Steel types eliminated, but the new Fairy type exists that is immune to Dragon, and Magnezone happens to match up well against Fairy types. So you kind of help against both of the anti-dragon types in the game. Gen 7 is very mechanically similar to Gen 6, but of course there's a bunch of new stuff that had huge metagame impact, and Z moves were one of them. Magnezone is actually a pretty good user of the Electrium Z Stone. Z moves are of course 1 per game massive attacks that deal up to 250 power in damage, something like that, and even bypass protect. They can only be used once, but they are significant, allowing surprise KOs, surprise coverage, and enhancement of boost sweepers. Magnezone is pretty unique in that it is a trapper who can then trap more things thanks to the damage from Electrium Z. With a significantly enhanced Thunderbolt turning into a big Z move, you can actually one-hit KO many Magneton sets, and Magneton is the new top dog of this metagame. It's an incredible steel fairy type with so many good sets. Magnezone being able to just smack it with a Z move is huge. Magnezone also loves the fact that Ferrothorn is never going away. Ferrothorn is still here, still awesome, and still an incredible target to be able to eliminate. There's also a new Ultra Beast that is popular on balanced teams called Celesteela, another steel flying type that has options like Leech Seed and Boost Sweeper sets too, with Automatize to boost its speed and get some ramping going with Beast Boost. Magnezone destroys Celesteela much the same way it did with Skarmory back in the day, just devastating it with super effective Thunderbolt. Substitute can even be used to take advantage of the more passive sets as you become immune to Leech Seed and take advantage of their Protect turns. And Magnezone's continued excellence in OU for years and years is just really impressive, I think. It hasn't fallen off. It's proven to be a pretty balanced Pokemon for a long time too, handling all of these broken new steel types that come up and just giving team builders options to build around with, and consistently having pretty cool moveset variety and item variety and different ways you can take advantage of it, leaning more into its strengths fundamentally with choice specs and Volt Switch spam, or running coverage for specific things, and running Z moves in Gen 7 is fun as well. Very cool stuff overall. In Gen 8, Magnezone still ranked OU amazingly, but there's good and bad news here. The bad news is that Hidden Power was removed from the game, and for years Magnezone has relied on Hidden Power to a great extent. It doesn't learn a Fire move by itself, and Fire is such an important type to hit, Scizor and Ferrothorn and Forretress and all these important steel types you need to trap. It also uses Hidden Power Ground and Hidden Power Ice and all of these options, but no more Hidden Power at all in the game. The good news, though, is that guess what? There's a new ubiquitous, incredibly popular steel type that is on many teams in Gen 8. Corviknight. Corviknight is another new steel flying type that has utility that Skarmory lacks, like access to U-turn and better mixed bulk and other such things. Corviknight is very popular, and Magnezone, of course, devastates it with a simple Thunderbolt. And it's not all bad for Magnezone, as Magnezone did receive at least the new option of Body Press. It's a weird option, but it is something to hit steel types, and steel types are the guys you're trapping, so at least they threw Magnezone a bone here. With Body Press, you have an attack that has 80 power and deals damage based on your defense stat rather than your attack stat. Luckily, Magnezone has an impressive defense stat and even access to the move Iron Defense to raise its defense stat. So this is a good option against Ferrothorn, who's still here, still central, but no longer able to be threatened by that damn HP fire. So this is now the way to power through Ferrothorn with Body Press instead. It's not as good, but it does work. And you can also take advantage of many steel types to set up full defense and get a pretty powerful Body Press going, turning you into perhaps a formidable offensive threat in your own little way there. Forgive me, I forgot to mention Kartana last generation, who was another important target and a Pokemon you could punish if it was choice locked, but Kartana in Gen 7 commonly ran Z moves and had fighting coverage, so Magnezone didn't feel that solid against it. In Gen 8, Z moves aren't here as much, and there are more choice Kartana sets, I believe, so Magnezone can trap that a bit up more often. There's also Melmetal, a new significant steel type who unfortunately can usually stomach your neutral Thunderbolts and shrug off your Body Press and just get rid of you with Earthquake. don't think you're that great at trapping the new big dog of steel typing Mel Metal, who I think is a bit of an abomination, but nobody asked my opinion, did they? Gen 9 is the worst generation Magnezone has ever experienced, and there's a few reasons for this. It's not a great moment for Magnezone in human history. Magnezone is suffering from the fact that Ferrothorn is no longer in the game. Ferrothorn is not in Gen 9, and the main reason to use Magnezone for a long time was because it's amazing at getting rid of Ferrothorn. Which is kind of funny that Ferrothorn's existence creates viability for Magnezone, but to be honest, even if Ferrothorn was in the game, there's a big problem, and that is the new terrestrialization mechanic. A mechanic that allows you to change into a different type. And of course, if you change into a different type, you are no longer steel and can no longer be trapped. It's still good to force them to Terra. That's still something. It's making them expend a resource, but it does suck that they have this emergency button to get out of there and even resist your incoming attacks that you're supposed to try to eliminate them with. For that reason, magnet pull trapping is feeling kind of crap in Gen 9 in general. And Magnezone is also struggling from the fact that one of the big new steel types is Goldengo, who is still Ghost, and Ghosts are immune to being trapped. So that's a steel type that just can't be trapped by magnet pull. That might be a fantastic target for you, but you can't target it. You can't get it. There is King Gambit, of course, and it's wonderful that you have Body Press to potentially eliminate King Gambit, but King Gambit is so powerful that it can also just overwhelm Magnezone with like Swords Dance, Terra Dark, Sucker Punch. I have seen a team with Probopass on it, who is also a magnet pull Pokemon, and just because it has such a high defense stat, it can trap King Gambit. Even it is not that great at trapping King Gambit though, which tells you a lot about the state of magnet pull trappers right now. And Probopass is certainly not as good outside of trapping as Magnezone is. I just think that it's a bad environment for magnet pull right now, and there's less targets, and the targets are more equipped to handle Magnezone if they are existing, which is a bit of a shame. But I think in a world without Terra, and in a world with Ferrothorn back in the game, which I assume will happen, I mean, maybe Ferrothorn's gone for good, but if there's steel types, they're probably good and competitive. And if they're steel type, they can be trapped with magnets, and therefore Magnezone will rise again, I believe, in a future generation, or in a future scenario. And assuming that Terra doesn't return, which I hope it doesn't. In general, I believe that Magneton and Magnezone are well-designed Pokemon that are underappreciated, and I think that this kind of type-specific trapping effect is a kind of design that they should experiment with more. Creates interesting team building, allowing you to target specific Pokemon and build around that. I believe that Magnezone's presence changes in every gen and is different, and it uses different tools, and it speaks to its good design, as it is rising up to fill important roles that change from game to game, but are consistently still useful and desirable. Even when it lost hidden power in Gen 8, it was still OU. I think there should maybe be a trapping effect that traps Fairy type, since Fairy has become such a ubiquitous defensive typing that would be kind of interesting to see. I wonder how that would look. But what do you think, folks? What are your thoughts on these magnetic Pokemon? What would you like me to talk about next? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.